Most people don't lose respect in dramatic moments. They lose it in quiet ones. Seconds they barely notice, comments they brush off, jokes they laugh at even though something inside tightens. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The first time someone disrespects you, they're not really insulting you. They're studying you. They're watching your nervous system, your reaction time, your emotional control. They're asking a silent question. How far can I go with this person? What's dangerous is not the disrespect itself. It's the response most people give. Some go silent, believing maturity means tolerance. Others explode, thinking strength looks like aggression. But both reactions teach the same lesson. Silence teaches permission. Emotional reactions teach leverage. And once that lesson is learned, it rarely stays a one-time event. Here's what almost no one tells you. Respect is not maintained by being nice, intelligent, or even confident. It's maintained by one precise psychological moment. One sentence, said once, at the right time, in the right way. A sentence so calm it feels almost boring, yet powerful enough to instantly reset the dynamic in the room. This isn't about winning arguments or intimidating people. It's about interrupting a behavioral pattern before it hardens. Because once disrespect becomes familiar, it becomes normalized. And once it's normalized, people stop questioning it, including you. If you've ever walked away from a conversation replaying what you should have said, feeling smaller than you did before it started, this is for you. Because there is a way to stop disrespect without raising your voice, without explaining yourself, and without turning the situation into a conflict. And once you understand it, you'll realize something unsettling but freeing. You never needed to say more, only less with absolute clarity. Disrespect is rarely spontaneous or accidental. In most social interactions, it functions as a subtle test, often unconscious, designed to measure boundaries, emotional control, and perceived status. Human beings are constantly scanning their environment to understand where they stand in relation to others. When someone makes a dismissive comment, interrupts you, uses sarcasm at your expense, or minimizes your opinion, their brain is not focused on the words alone. It is observing your response. Do you tense up? Do you laugh it off? Do you over-explain? Or do you remain steady and self-contained? From a psychological perspective, these moments are data-gathering exercises. The other person is learning what behavior is tolerated and what is not. If the disrespect is ignored, the brain interprets this as permission. If it is met with emotional intensity, the behavior is reinforced because it successfully created a reaction. Either outcome encourages repetition. This is why disrespect tends to escalate gradually rather than appear suddenly. It starts small because small violations feel safer to test. What makes this process particularly powerful is that it often happens beneath conscious awareness. Many people engaging in disrespectful behavior would not describe themselves as intentionally rude, yet their nervous system recognizes shifts in power and adjusts accordingly. When boundaries are unclear, people push. When clarity is present, they stop. Understanding disrespect as a test rather than an insult removes the urge to personalize it and instead allows you to respond strategically, with calm authority rather than emotion. The sentence that resets power dynamics is not powerful because it is clever or aggressive, but because it is precise, calm, and emotionally neutral. In psychological terms, power in social interactions is less about dominance and more about regulation. The person who appears most grounded, least reactive, and most certain about their boundaries naturally holds the upper position. A single clear sentence works because it disrupts the expected pattern. Disrespectful behavior usually anticipates either silence or emotional engagement. When neither appears, the interaction loses momentum. What makes this sentence effective is that it focuses on behavior, not character. It does not accuse, insult, or diagnose. Instead, it simply names what is happening and establishes a limit. The human brain is highly responsive to clarity. Ambiguity invites negotiation, clarity ends it. When you speak calmly and without explanation, you communicate that the boundary is not up for discussion. This triggers a moment of internal recalibration in the other person. They become aware that the dynamic has shifted and that further behavior may have consequences. Equally important is restraint. Saying it once preserves its weight. Repeating boundaries signals uncertainty, as if you are asking rather than stating. A single statement delivered with steady tone and relaxed body language communicates self-respect without hostility. It sends a powerful message: you are attentive, composed, and unwilling to tolerate subtle violations. In many cases, that is enough to reset the relationship permanently. In human communication, words carry far less weight than the emotional and physiological signals surrounding them. Tone and timing activate the nervous system long before language is consciously processed. From a psychological standpoint, the brain evaluates safety, threat, and authority first, and meaning second. This is why the same sentence can either escalate a situation or end it instantly depending on how and when it is delivered. A calm tone communicates self-regulation, and self-regulation is interpreted as strength. An agitated tone, even when the words are correct, signals loss of control and invites challenge rather than respect. Timing is equally critical because the brain learns through immediate feedback. Addressing disrespect in the moment prevents the behavior from becoming normalized. Delayed responses often come across as resentment rather than clarity, which weakens their impact. When a boundary is stated calmly and promptly, it creates a clean association between the behavior and the consequence. The other person's brain registers the interaction as complete, not unresolved. Tone also influences how the other person's nervous system responds. A neutral, steady voice reduces defensiveness and interrupts emotional escalation. It removes the social reward of drama or dominance. Combined with appropriate timing, this approach shifts the interaction from emotional to cognitive processing. The result is not confrontation, but recalibration. In many cases, nothing further needs to be said. The message has already landed at the level that matters most. When a calm, clear boundary is stated, the disrespectful person's mind experiences an abrupt psychological shift. Their expectation is interrupted. Most disrespectful behavior operates on prediction, an assumption that the other person will either tolerate the behavior or react emotionally. When neither happens, the brain momentarily loses its script. This creates a pause, and in psychology, pauses are powerful because they force internal recalculation. In that moment, uncertainty replaces confidence. The individual becomes aware that the behavior has been noticed and labeled, yet not rewarded. There is no emotional payoff, no escalation, no submission. The nervous system registers this as a failed strategy. Without reinforcement, behavior low. SES momentum. This is a fundamental principle of learning and conditioning. Actions that do not produce results are less likely to be repeated. At a deeper level, the person begins reassessing the social hierarchy of the interaction. Calm boundaries signal self-respect and internal stability, qualities associated with authority and credibility. Even if they do not consciously admit it, their perception of you shifts. You are no longer seen as passive or reactive, but as someone with limits. Importantly, this shift often happens silently. There may be no apology or acknowledgement. Instead, future interactions change. Tone softens. Language becomes more careful. This is not because you dominated them, but because their brain adjusted to new information. Disrespect no longer works here. Saying a boundary once is effective because it mirrors how the brain learns rules and authority. In psychology, repetition is not what creates respect, consistency is. When a boundary is stated clearly and enforced through behavior rather than repeated words, it becomes a fixed reference point in the other person's mind. Repeating yourself often communicates doubt, as though you are seeking agreement instead of stating a limit. This weakens the boundary and invites continued testing. When you say it once and then change your behavior if necessary, by disengaging, withdrawing attention, or limiting access, you allow natural consequences to teach the lesson. The brain quickly links cause and effect. Disrespect leads to loss of connection, not debate. This type of learning is far more durable than verbal warnings because it is experiential. The person feels the outcome rather than being told about it. There is also a strong self-regulatory benefit. When you trust yourself to speak once and act accordingly, your internal sense of authority strengthens. You stop rehearsing conversations in why. Our head, and stop waiting for others to validate your boundaries. Over time, this shifts how people approach you from the beginning. They sense clarity before testing becomes necessary. Long-term respect is not built through force or fear, but through predictability. When people know exactly where the line is and know it will be upheld, they adapt. Saying it once, calmly and clearly, is often all it takes to establish that predictability permanently. Disrespect only survives where boundaries are unclear or unenforced. The moment you respond with calm precision, the dynamic changes, not because you argued better, but because you showed certainty. You showed that your self-respect is not negotiable, not emotional, and not dependent on approval. And that is what truly stops repeated violations. You don't need to correct people endlessly. You don't need to explain why something hurt you. You don't need to convince anyone to value you. One clear sentence, delivered once, tells the truth your behavior will continue to support. Access to you requires respect. The strongest people are not the loudest or the most aggressive. They are the most regulated. They recognize that power is quiet, boundaries are simple, and self-respect is shown through action. When you stop reacting and start responding, people adjust, or they remove themselves. Both outcomes protect your peace. Remember this, how you allow others to speak to you becomes the standard they follow. Say it once, mean it, and let your consistency do the rest.